Hello there. I thought I'd today go through a few of the regular questions I get in the comments on my videos on the channel. I do try and reply in the comments, but there's some common questions that come up and I thought it might be useful and kind of bring it to the attention of a slightly wider audience by going through these questions. So these are the questions I've had over the past year or so. They're in no particular order. I just went through the videos and noted them down, so hopefully I'll cover most of what I've been asked anyway. One question on a fairly recent video I was asked was, what would I rate the ATS20 or the Target HF3, both of which have appeared in my videos? And I have to say, it probably won't surprise you to hear that the Target HF3 is a much better receiver than the ATS20. I don't know now whether the Target is still available new. It was up to about a year ago. I haven't looked since. It's a very simple and basic receiver, the Target, but it actually works quite well for what it is. There's many better receivers out there. Most of them sadly are no longer in production, but the Target HF3 is what I would call a reasonable communications receiver. The ATS20 is not. As I've said before, the ATS20 and the 25 and the similar receivers they're curiosities. They're great for people that want to play around with the Arduino and want to build up their skill in writing the sketches and so on. But as a shortwave listener's tool, as a decent receiver, the Target HF3 is far, far better. Going on to some of my more recent videos where I've shown you the medium wave DX that I've been able to receive by tuning a remote Kiwi, and the Kiwi receiver in this case has been the one run by the medium wave circle, which is a DX club here in the UK that specialises in medium wave. I've had a question as to what antenna is used on that Kiwi, and if you log into the Kiwi, which you're only able to do unfortunately if you're a member of the medium wave circle, you'll see that they use a couple of beverage antennas, and these are really long wire antennas basically that are quite low off the ground. I think one of the antennas is something like 900 meters long, so it's not the sort of antenna most of us could even dream about putting up. So that's how they're getting that level of reception. They're using long beverage antennas. Another question about the Kiwi, which applies to all Kiwi receivers, my own included: can more than one user tune a Kiwi radio at the same time? And the answer is yes. The Kiwis can accommodate up to 8 users who can tune the radios independently. And the dog there is, of course, when I'm making this video, decided to bark. So apologies, I'm sure the microphone's picking that up. Have I tried the ATS25 X1, which I believe is an updated ATS25. I'll just show you my ATS25. There's the ATS25 with the floppy antenna. Comes as standard, you don't pay extra for that. The answer is no, I haven't tried the ATS25 X1. But the X1 is just upgraded firmware as far as I know, and I have upgraded the firmware on my ATS25, which is basically the same thing. I don't think there's any hardware changes in the X1, so I've got the updated, I've got the Bernard Bins firmware, which I show in one of my videos, which it does improve the interface on the ATS25, so I kind of have tried an X1, but I haven't bought another ATS25 with that firmware ready installed. Question about the Belka DX. That Belka comes up quite a bit, and I've been asked how the Belka DX performs on single sideband. It performs very well. There's quite a few videos on the channel showing the Belka in use on various bands, both receiving AM broadcast band stations and single sideband, and you'll see the Belka. It performs as well as most of my communication receivers in the shack. It's a good receiver on SSB. I've had questions about the antennas I use in the shack. Now I've got a number of antennas. My Kiwi SDR is pretty much permanently connected up to a Wellbrook loop, I'll put the link for my Kiwi in the comments on this video, and you can actually, you're welcome to log on and tune my Kiwi receiver. I'm not in a brilliant location, it's not bad. I don't have too much noise, particularly with the Wellbrook, so I get reasonable results on my Kiwi. So I use the Kiwi with the Wellbrook loop antenna. I've got a Bonito Bonnie Whip, a mini whip antenna, which at the moment is connected to my Kenwood R5000 for general shortwave listening. I've got an MLA 30 active loop, which is connected to my SDR, my ELAD FDM-S2 SDR receiver. For amateur radio, I use an antenna called a Western HF10. It's a wire antenna, a doublet. It's based on the half-size G5RV with a few modifications. It actually, for transmitting purposes, it goes from 80 to 10 meters. I can also obviously use that with my receivers, and it works quite well. But the main antenna, as I say, for the Kiwi is the Wellbrook loop. In a couple of my videos, I show you the Icom 718 receiver that I use in my other shack at my partner's QTH. And I've been asked, does the Icom 718 have the same receiver as the Icom R75? Because I'm aware they look almost identical. And I'll put some pictures of the two up here on this video so you can see. They look very, very similar anyway. There's a few little differences, but they're basically using the same casing. I believe the R75 has a better receiver. I hope so, because I find the 718 to have quite a noisy receiver. Certainly of all my amateur radio gear, I think the 718 has the noisiest receiver of the rigs I own at the moment. So I would hope the 75 has a better receiver, and I believe it does have a different receiver from the Icom 718 transceiver, even though they look much the same. Another common question that comes up is, again, to do with these Chinese ATS receivers. Comes up for the ATS 20, which is here, the ATS 25 and the 20 plus and all the others. Do they cover airband? And the answer is no. The SI4732 chip in those receivers, it's not airband capable. And also, it's worth noting that they don't cover FM as a mode on HF. Now, I think a lot of people get confused because you will see, if I hold this up to the camera, that it says FM, AM, and SSB, but they're talking about broadcast FM, or band 2 FM as we would call it in the UK, not FM mode. So if you want to listen to 10 meter repeaters on 10 meters FM, or you want to listen to Citizen Band CB activity on 27 megs, there's no FM on those radios. Now, that's not particularly unusual, because the portable receivers like the Sewer Dawn 808 or the Texan PL330 that I also own, they don't have FM mode on HF either. The Belka does, and you can receive FM on the HF bands, but most of the portable receivers don't, and the ATSs are no exception. Back to the Belka again. Where can I get a Belka? A couple of people ask me that. Best place to get a Belka is to order it from the manufacturer in Belarus, Alex. Shipping takes a little while, certainly to the UK, but that's more to do with our postal system and the various customs checks. I've had quite a bit of correspondence with Alex, as you'll see from my videos on the Belka. I've had 2 Belkas from him. They've arrived, no problems at all. I've seen used Belkas for sale on eBay, and in some cases the sellers are asking either more or virtually the same as a new price direct from Belarus. So I would always order direct from the manufacturer with the Belka. Catch-all question, really. I get asked quite a lot, which receiver would I recommend? And that's a hard one. So much of it is personal preference, and not only that, what you intend to do with the receiver. Are you a medium wave DXer, for example, Are you just going to listen to shortwave broadcasts? Do you want to listen to utilities and amateur radio stations on SSB? As an all-rounder, I'm afraid it's the Belka again. Superb radio for HF listening, and it will tolerate a base antenna as well as the whip. So I could connect this to my Wellbrook or my mini whip or my wire antenna and still get good results. The only caveat, the only drawback with the Belkas that I have, they don't cover medium wave. The new ones do, so you'll get medium wave coverage if you order a new Belka. If you're not going for the Belka for a portable receiver, probably the Texan PL330, good basic receiver, Suodon D808. Base receivers are more difficult because there aren't really many made now. The only obvious one comes to mind, which I would love to own but they're a little expensive, is an Icom R8600. They've had very good reviews. I've got some older receivers which are excellent, such as the Kenwood 5000 that you see in some of my videos, the Drake R8B, the NRD 525 and the FRG 8800, but all of those are quite old receivers. Along the Icom R70 is another one, and most of the older receivers I have one or two issues, most of them minor, but as these radios get older they're going to develop more faults, they're going to need maintenance. So from a new receiver point of view, you're probably left with the choice of a very expensive Icom R8600. Other than that, look around second-hand FRG7s, 8800s, 7700s, the Kenwood receivers. If you get a good working example, you'll have a superb receiver. Another question I get asked with the programming videos that I do, where I've programmed, I think I've programmed a number of radios, both DMR radios, one of the CB radios I had here, dual band 2-meter radios. Can I supply the programming firmware, software, whatever? And the answer is no. You'll have to obtain any programming software yourselves. I can't start putting links to it because the links undoubtedly will go out of date, and then people complain the links are out of date. And some of the software for some of the radios is quite difficult to obtain. For example, the Motorola radios, it is obtainable. Some of it you'll have to pay for, but I can't distribute it. I was asked if I tried FT8 and RTTY with an ATS25, and I haven't. Comment when I said a Suodon 808 or a Texan PL330 was superior to the ATS25. Somebody came back to me and said, you haven't tried them on FT8, and that the ATS25 was far superior on FT8. So I'm going to try that. It's a good idea for a future video. I'd be surprised if the FT8 mode is really good on the ATS25, but we'll try it and see. I was asked, would I recommend the Texan S8800 for SSB listening at the price that they commonly cost. Now, I'm not sure that the S8800 is available new. No, I don't think it is. I haven't seen them advertised. I paid a lot less for my S8800 than the new price. And if you've seen my videos, you'll see that my 8800 came without the remote. The remote had been lost. I managed to obtain a remote separately. The S8800 is quite a nice radio. It works really well as a portable for broadcast listening because it has a very nice audio reproduction, has a nice big speaker, the filtering's quite good. It works okay on SSB, but it's not as good as, for example, the Belka. It's better than the PL330 or the Suodon 808 because you haven't got the annoying muting when you tune. But there's a bit of a warble, I find, whether that's to do with the AGC setting on sideband with the 8800. It's not perfect on single sideband. It's perfectly adequate. and there's no real barrier to listening to amateur radio and utilities on an 8800. It's just there are better receivers out there, and if you were looking purely at single sideband, probably the 8800 isn't the radio for you. Again, something like a Belka would be better, or failing that, an older communications receiver. Have a look on eBay for Kenwoods, the Aces, the Icoms and so on. But the 8800s, it's okay. And lastly, we mentioned the Belka a few times in this video. A question as to what the IQ output. The Belka has an IQ output, and I'm going to do a separate video on that. We shall go into a little bit more detail on the IQ output from the Belka and what it means. But in summary, it allows us, it's basically a data output from the Belka that allows us to use SDR software with the Belka. But it's not a data connection. So we can't use the computer to tune the Belka. What we can do is port a signal from the Belka and analyze it on the computer using SDR software. In the video I gave an example of, I was using SDR Sharp, and we were able to look at, I think it was like a 48 kilohertz wide chunk of spectrum using the Belka, and then we could use the filters in the SDR software to manipulate the signal. So that's using the IQ output of the Belka, but it's not a means of computer controlling the Belka. At the moment, that can't be done. There aren't any facilities for it, and I'm not aware of any plans for the Belka to be able to be controlled in that way. But it is interesting to be able to output the signal and analyze it on the SDR software, and it's a little extra tool in the armory of the Belka, which is already a very versatile receiver. So those are just a few of the questions. Hopefully there were some interesting answers. Always happy to get some questions about the equipment I use and the videos I'm doing. We've got more stuff coming up in the new year. Again, most of my output is generally shortwave listening based, because primarily that's my main interest, but I am active to a limited extent on HF. I'm very fond of the 10 meter band, which has been opening up lately, and you've seen a couple of my videos about the 10 meter radio that I've now put in the car, and the 10 meter antennas I've been trying out. So there'll be some more content on that side of things, and also some of the radio working I've been able to do from the secondary shack, where the facilities are a lot more limited antenna wise. I'm just using the Pro Whip antenna that I covered in an earlier video, and I'm able to tune that on 20 meters upwards. In fact, it does tune on the lower bands, but again, it's very noisy on the lower bands, so that's perhaps one of the drawbacks, particularly of a short vertical like that. But I'll be able to show you some of that. So hopefully there'll be some other interesting things coming up. And I'm also going to cover the Kiwi SDR in a little bit more depth, because that's one radio that's made a significant difference to the hobby, for me at least. I think it's an amazing piece of technology, even though it's been around for a few years now. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.